This video is by Straight Goods News, sgnews.ca.
So by the 13th of September, CFIA had decided they will no longer ship any meat products into the U.S. market because there was a problem. For the next 2 weeks, they sent products to the Canadian market, and then they shut it down on the 27th. So it's not a question of you don't know there's a problem. When you're not sending beef to the U.S., there's a problem. That means there's a problem for Canadians. It's the same plant.
Not much has been made about cuts to the CFIA and how that may impact food safety, but a question the Consumer Association was asking, well, it doesn't matter how many inspectors were at the plant, something went wrong and they didn't obviously catch it. I'm wondering what you have to say from that perspective. Just, there were inspectors there, but clearly things fell through the cracks even without cuts according to our government.
Well, without a doubt, under the system they have in place, if you don't train inspectors properly in Canadian verification system, which we now know is the case there, what ends up happening is you have what basically occurred there was they had an incident and multiple types of incidents and they couldn't control it, and as Mr. Arsenault said, we couldn't connect the dots. And so if they're not properly trained, you're right, we could have lots of inspectors, but if they're not trained properly, you won't have a system that's actually doing the job it's supposed to do, which is for health and safety of Canadian consumers.
What about the reputation of our meat? I mean, what kind of damage do you think this has done, not just domestically, but also internationally, the U.S. being a big trading partner?
Well, what I can tell our U.S. friends is primary producers are great producers. They have some of the best quality beef in the world. We had an incident at a particular producer. That's being rectified. We need to continue to work on making sure the system works effectively. That's what this minister needs to take responsibility for.
In your view, at the political level, what went wrong, so wrong, that would justify the minister stepping down, in your view?
What went wrong was this minister knew on the 5th of September there was a real concern and a real issue around E. coli and didn't share that with Canadians until September the 13th when he started the recall. He needed to share that much earlier. It's not the first time this minister has had issues with food safety. 2008, 22 people died in this country. I thought that this minister and that agency would have learned that lesson.
What do you think the company should be doing? They've issued this page on their website and voicemail line. They've been given a single interview or answered a single question to Canadians, as far as I can tell, across the entire country what started happening. What do you think they should be doing?
Well, it's not for me to tell a company what they should or shouldn't do, but clearly there is an ownership around corporate responsibility here. They ought to rethink their position on corporate responsibility.
Are you concerned that the CFIA is being politicized by the Harper?
I think where the politicization comes is they are saying, well, we are holding the CFIA's feet to the fire. It's the minister's feet that should be held to the fire. He is ultimately responsible for CFIA and Agri-Food Canada. That is his job. It's his feet that should be in the fire. That's why my leader called for his resignation.
In the press conference in Calgary yesterday, it appeared that the PMO was controlling what the president of the CFIA was allowed to say.
Well, there's no question yesterday, because I actually watched it on the news, that when the president, George Dupont, was getting ready to answer questions for Canadians, literally looking at Canadians and getting ready to answer those questions, that we had a media staffer from either from the PMO or from Minister Ritz's office, not sure which, literally whisk him out physically from answering those questions. That is them politicizing the CFIA by not giving Canadians the answers they deserve when the president of CFIA was actually ready to answer the questions.